Shalom, family, and thank you so much for joining us for this week's weekly news update. And it's always a pleasure for us to get together on these weekly updates so we can review a lot of the current events that are occurring around our world. Our Earth experience is becoming definitely more complicated. Somebody give me a 5x5 so I know that you can hear me out there. And again, thank you so much for joining us, for sharing the link, for sitting down for a minute, putting the world on pause. I don't know about you, but there are many times throughout the week that I just need to put the world on pause. And as much as we enjoy, interacting and fellowshipping, when you get an overload of the activity, especially of your adversary, it can really drain you. And that's one of the reasons why I believe a lot of people just found the off button and decided, you know what, I'm going to just go ahead and turn that off, and didn't turn it back on. And as a result, kind of lost track of things going on the earth. And so that's one of the reasons why we do these weekly reviews, because I heard from and have for quite some time when I'd ask people, hey, have you heard about this and heard about that? And the answers I would get would be basically, I checked out. I couldn't take it anymore. And honestly, based on the work of having to review for Remnant Watch as well as for this weekly review, it is a daunting task to look through the various stories and things that are happening. And it's difficult to disconnect yourself from the human experience. If you've got any empathic ability at all, then you're going to feel the pain of these people. And when I start to read stories about, upwards, I believe we took a look at the count on the earthquake that happened in Turkey. And of course, as you all know, that number is continuing to skyrocket. I wouldn't be surprised if it eclipses 100,000 before it's over. And yet we're still seeing miraculous stories where they're pulling people out of the rubble. Give Yahuwah the praise for every soul that is saved. I heard about one story where a young girl was saved, and they asked her how she made it that long, and I said, well, the man in the white robe would come and give me food and water. So you're going to hear all kinds of things now, and I do believe that he uses all these things for good and for his purpose. And there's certainly no question that we are at war. I think that if anybody had any questions about levels of warfare, those questions have now been answered. The remnant have been thoroughly vindicated. Everything that we took a stand on and were ostracized for, were removed from fellowship, just as Messiah said they would do. They would remove us from fellowship. They would disconnect from us. They would count us as an offender because of his name, because we wouldn't let go, because we don't compromise those things. And you are causing a serious reverberation. Now, I seem to recall him telling you all the breaker anointing had been loosed in the earth. So I strongly recommend anybody who's still confused to go back and listen to that, because you're going to start to understand what's happening. It's breaking. It's breaking. And that means their control is breaking. That is where the panic is coming in. That's why you're seeing sort of this increase of pace of crazy. The reason why we're seeing that increase of pace is because there's a great panic. And we see that in the scripture. The scripture reflects this panic. Why else would great men of stature, generals, leaders, kings go into the dens of the earth and plead with the rocks to fall on them if there wasn't a panic? Why would they go through the horrible expense and the tremendous amount of hardship to somehow survive if it wasn't because there was a great panic? If there's one thing we know about the kingdom of darkness, it operates by fear. So we know that there's a lot that they're trying to do to induce fear and to create an atmosphere that is fear-based so as to control you all. And that's one reason why I believe it's important for us to take the time to dissect some of these things, to take a look at the greater picture and not be caught by surprise. Last week, we talked about the train derailment when it wasn't even being mentioned. And then all of a sudden it exploded, and we're hearing a great deal about that. But again, saints, this is the kind of thing that typically slips behind the news cycle and you don't hear about it. And so these are the kinds of things that usually go on undetected and cause great harm. But let me encourage all of my brothers and sisters out there who are believers in Messiah that you can drink any deadly thing and it shall not harm you. I'm going to say it again. You can drink any deadly thing and it shall not harm you. And so those that are running in fear and operating in fear are misunderstanding why we're being informed. We're being informed not because of our necessarily because of our personal peril, but so that we have our finger in the wind as to what time it is, how much time we have left, how we can move expeditiously. We're basically getting out of the way while the wicked are removed. You need to get out of the way. It's kind of like a snow emergency. And if you grew up in any of the northern states, you know about it. If you grew up in the South, you may not know about this, but in the North, they have snow emergencies. And so if it snows over a certain number of inches, you can only park on certain sides of the street because they need to clear it out. And so it's not that they want to tow your car. They want to clear that side of the street. But if you happen to park your car there, we'll tow it, right? Well, it's kind of the same thing. The king is removing debris. You don't want to be parked on the wrong place. You don't want to be with the wrong people, if you know what I mean, because he's going to remove debris. All right. And so this is what was prophesied in the book of Enoch in the time of trouble when the wicked would be removed. That's what it says. And so I think a lot of you are waking up to that reality and seeing the wickedness being removed. You're seeing things that you didn't expect to see manifesting in the earth. And you didn't maybe expect to be here for this. Maybe you didn't expect to even be here to see any of this. Maybe you thought you'd be long gone, and that's got you a little freaked out. And I'm glad you made it to our corner of the internet. I'm glad you made it to sit with us, and you can calm down a little bit and realize that you're good. You're fine. You're in the camp of those who are alive and remain until the coming of the King. That very passage for Second Thessalonians that tells us that gives us the instruction that we need to stay alive and to endure together. And this is why we need one another. This is why we need to stay together. And we need to review these things with wisdom so that we're not like them running around like chickens with our heads cut off, but instead recognizing the hour we're in, recognizing the severity of the situation, and ordering affairs accordingly. It was in knowing in advance that Herod had ordered the death of the children of Bethlehem that put context to the move of Joseph and Miriam to Egypt with Messiah. Otherwise, it doesn't make sense. But when you understand the news, right? Because they got the news, they got an early news report, okay, on current events. And it was angelically provided so that they could make a correct decision that would preserve the life of Messiah. You are all precious as well. And he is saving lives right now, preserving them. So those of you who are considered very forward thinking and got away from high population centers and began to establish yourself in the country where the plowshares would be, right? He said he was going to cause us to beat our swords into plowshares. You might want to get used to that concept and get out there amongst his creation, right? And so if you're getting out in front, then you were sent in advance and you are much to be praised and blessed, and Elohim will bless you. The rest took their time and are taking their time, mostly out of ignorance, saints. And so we need to be gracious to them. I know that my heart is filled with a lot of mercy and grace for those that are struggling. They don't know what to do. And I hear that a lot. I hear people saying, I have no idea what we're going to do, where we're going to go, what have you. All their thinking, all their planning. As I said, most people I find either have no plan, are in search of a plan, or are executing a bad plan. And really, the latter is usually where I find them, is executing a bad plan. But there are those that are still in search of a plan. And obviously, if they're still searching a plan, then they have no plan. Or their plan is to just do what everybody else does. What a horrible idea, right? And this is why he's calling for us to have courage, to be courageous people. It takes courage to leave Egypt, what you know, to go toward the unknown. And that's what made all of you who are forward-thinking people very exceptional. I want to encourage everyone that is joining us tonight to mark this time. We do this every week at this time. And I want to also encourage you to come on over to remnantwatch.com. And that's where we generally put all the stories. If I get anything late in that I get just before I broadcast, and I will go back and put the story on here so that you can track back any stories that we discuss during this broadcast, because I think that's really important and it has been very valuable. And thank you all for your kind words and encouragements and comments below these videos to encourage others, because that has really been a blessing. And it's a bit of a labor, but it's a labor of love. And I'm a newsie anyway. So we need to stay on top of these things regardless. So let's get into the news, shall we? We've got a few people sitting with us tonight. Again, thank you all for joining us. It is always a pleasure and an honor for me to sit with you. You are also blessed. And we are very, very thankful for all of you, really are. And so today, one story that was leading Remnant Watch, and I wanted to put this up here because we hear so much going in one direction that it's good to sort of see the awakening at this level. This is a very, stark difference to the news stories that you would typically hear. Many people were not aware that Idaho legislatures have introduced a measure that would criminalize COVID tap jabs throughout their state. So the pushback is real, and this is really good. I believe it's really good news. I believe that medical tyranny is a very dangerous direction for people to go. There are many things throughout just even the recent American history that indicate that we should never consider something settled science. We had many, many instances that we could cite that reflect the utter folly of such a position, especially when it is coming from, the government. I think it was Ronald Reagan that said one of the most scariest words he could ever think of to say was, "I'm from the government and I'm here to help." I mean, this was a president, so this is not a joke, folks. This is serious stuff, and they are trying to help in their very sort of psychotic ways. But again, what they mean by help is enslavement. So again, we have to be very careful about this, and we have to be careful about giving people a pass because we like them, all right? Because we like this personality, or we like this thing, and that is not a good, acceptable reason for you to ignore serious violations of your sovereignty because someone is nice. Okay. I mean, the devil will ask for you to walk into a dungeon and a trap very nicely. Right. So it's dangerous stuff. But anyway, Idaho legislatures are introducing measures. A GOP controlled Idaho legislature. And this is a good step. This is definitely one of those wake up moments where I think a lot of people are realizing that they got fooled, they were deceived, and that is a good thing for us to see. So continue to pray for eyes to open there. We couldn't save everyone. You're seeing a lot more vindication. The more information that comes out, you've got class action lawsuits that are going forward. You have entire countries. Okay, somebody's saying states. Well, there's entire countries now that are following suit. So we talked about that last week, and I believe that we're going to get more updates as we go down this pathway. You're going to see more and more states begin, or countries even begin to ask for a refund, okay, and remove that indemnification because you sold it to us by fraud. You sold it to us under the label of this, but it was this. That is fraud, and fraud vitiates everything. Do these people ever do anything without lying? That's really the question, is do they ever do anything without deceiving, right? Whenever there's deceiving involved, we've got to be done right there. So, and that's a very serious situation, Saints. We've got a lot here going on. Speaking of deceiving, this is not the first, this last thing that we've been talking about with regard to the Ohio derailment. We talked about that last week, and this has become a big topic on the news, and a lot of people are reviewing it, but this is not. By the way, big shout out to Natural News and my friend Mike Adams out there at Natural News in Brighteon. What a great job they're doing of bringing stories up that other people aren't covering. So I really applaud them, and I'm very grateful for them. Big shout out to them. A month before the Ohio vinyl chloride toxic gas bomb was ignited by government officials, a large chemical plant exploded in LaSalle, Illinois. Is this a pattern? And we do know that there was 2 other derailments that occurred as well, almost a month to the day before the Norfolk Southern freight train derailed in East Palestine, Ohio, and was subsequently burned on purpose. Another chemical plant exposure occurred in Illinois. The Caras potassium permanganate plant in LaSalle reportedly caught fire on January 12, sending a chemical plume into the air that left residue all over nearby residences. And again, this is one of the dangers of this, is that you're not just dealing with the area that this impacts, but you're also dealing with the fallout, because these geniuses, which I think they know exactly what they're doing, are making sure they maximize the damage. And so this is part of the continuing effort. And here we see it again. Let me put this up here. We see an additional trains carrying hazardous materials continue to derail around the country. Is the U.S. under attack? You got to start asking these questions. And so are you in a multi-dimensional war, and simply because you weren't officially told, go, time to go, ready, go, you know what I mean? Like, because nobody actually said, okay, ready, go, it's war. Because all is fair in war, and not telling you in war is probably part of that, right? So they're just not going to tell you that you've entered into a war. And what you don't realize is that you are the enemy. It is not the armies of these various countries that are enemies one of another. You, the people with all the power, are the enemy. You are the ones with the ability to fire them all. Okay? And so this is who they really are fighting with. And we see that if you do a little bit of historical review. 1933 is a good example of them making the American people themselves the actual enemy combatants, if you will. They're going to turn you into, and you are a terror to them. You got to realize it's very scary for them. They wouldn't even go to the press conference in Ohio because, again, they were in fear of their lives. They say it right there. They are in fear of their lives. They are living in panic mode because you hold all the power. You are the people. They're afraid of you, and they should be. They should be. And that's actually a very good thing. And that's why the adversary, yes, Octavia, by the way, thank you again for sharing with me so many good stories. So we're going to cover a few of them. And yes, that's exactly why they are trying to kill people. And this is exactly what they did in every major conflagration. And by the way, they always go after the same groups of people. It looks to me like they're eliminating financial liabilities. They're hitting the people that they would owe the most to. So this is going to continue for some time. Now, there are some discussions about revaluations. We've been hearing rumors about this for some time. However, I believe those are actually coming in more in earnest to tie in with, we have the juggling of the Fed will only last till right around Shavuot. The coronation of the head of Great Britain right around Shavuot. They're talking about their CBDC being ready right around Shavuot. And so looking like, that's kind of a window for us to be paying closer attention to as we walk. Anytime we're going past the feast days, they are appointed times, and you are all awake to know that you do not close your eyes during feast days, all right, especially leading up to, because a lot happens during those time periods. So as we walk up to the feast days, we'll keep our eyes open, but it's looking as if there's a setup coming probably for this summer, and that's going to mean some serious financial hardship. I'm hearing, and again, these are just rumors, guys. I'm just giving you my insights and things that I hear. But that if you still have money, you plan on holding money in its current form by the end of this current Gregorian year, you'll probably lose it. So it's a move it or lose it, use it or lose it kind of thing. And I saw that coming for some time. I knew that it would eventually arrive, that moment of fork in the road would occur. And folks, I hate to tell you this, but this is a massive separation, because he was very clear. You cannot serve Elohim and Mammon. And he was so clear about that. Like, he didn't mince any words. He was very clear. So this is going to be a separator between those who are sincerely his and those who are just paying lip service. And you know how that is. Okay, everybody's down to be part of that everybody will go on vacation till you tell them how much. Everybody will say they want to go to, Bermuda or go to Hawaii on vacation till you say, all right, here's your portion. And then how many know that's when you're going to find out who really wants to go, versus the people that were like just wishing they could just sort of be, they're wishing they there's a difference between wishing to be part of the body and being an active part of the body of Messiah. And so I think a lot of people are being introduced and being given an orientation, but actually crossing over, actually Hebrewing, okay? Actually becoming Hebrew, which means to cross over, is a bigger commitment. And so trains are going off rails, all kinds of things are happening. Now, by the way, Mama sent me a video. I don't have it handy, but she sent me a video of what a typical train track looks like in Wisconsin or something. And it looks like this train track was laid by a bunch of drunken guys 100 years ago. I'm not even kidding. I wish I had it because I put it up there. It is maybe I can find it. It's the craziest thing. And this is their tracks. This is their tracks. This is what they're going on. So are we shocked? Not not really surprised that that there's this many derailments and issues going on because the infrastructure is falling apart. But hey, but don't worry, because guys, don't worry, because we're going to send some money to Ukraine. Okay, so don't worry about that. I know it's rough. Oh, I found the video. Hang on, you guys got to see this. Mama sent me this, and I thought it was hilarious. Hang on a second. Let's get rid of that. Here we go. Take a look at this, guys. Take a look at this train track. I want you to look at this. Just take a moment to, as we sit here and as we chat, tonight, I want you to just consider that this is carrying hazardous materials. All right. I want you to consider it's carrying something that could poison the entire region of an area, right? Okay. And I would say this is probably critical infrastructure, right? This is critical to the development of the country. Any monarch, any president, any governor, any mayor, any authority, anyone with any power who would see this and see it even for one time should be saying to themselves, "Oh my goodness, let's get a fix. We got to fix this, right? We can't let that continue. We can't abide this." But you see, there you have it. You have internal infrastructure that is literally falling apart right around us. And don't think that it is not all over, because it is. Here, take a look at this. This just happened down in our neck of the woods. Down here, a hazardous spill in Arizona. One of our people happened to be driving up in that area, ended up with a headache because of the chemicals that they spilled. A hazardous spill in Arizona closes down an interstate and forces an evacuation. This is happening at the same time, folks. You seen that? So this is a continuation of the same plan. A portion of the main freeway that runs through the southern Arizona desert and links the two states' cities remain closed outside of Tucson on Wednesday morning, a day after a deadly crash causing a hazardous material leak and forced evacuations nearby. So you may think, well, this is not coordinated. This isn't a coincidence. This is a coincidence. Maybe it's a coincidence. I don't believe in coincidences. Okay. Coincidence is a conspiracy you haven't figured out yet. That's my opinion. A coincidence is a conspiracy you haven't figured out yet. And you're starting to go, things that make you go, things that make you go, what? It's true though. So there's just undiscovered conspiracies. Once you haven't confirmed yet, but you're like, wait a second, y'all, you just happen to have done the same thing on the same day. We're starting to get suspicious. Okay, and then you see more stories that kind of give you maybe an indication as to why that might be the case. Look at this. Residents of East Palestine may already be undergoing DNA mutations, a class action lawsuit claims. So again, they're not getting away with this quickly. It is reaction time is going on big time because people are so unbelievably incredulous. They cannot believe this stuff is happening. But the reaction time is getting quicker, which is good. It's only been 2 weeks since the infamous Norfolk Southern freight train carrying noxious chemicals through East Palestine, Ohio, derailed and blew up in a controlled explosion, and we are still no closer, despite promises from the company, to learning the extent of the deadly chemical release. Area residents are growing restless without these answers, and some of them have joined a class action lawsuit claiming the exposure they have already incurred is causing them to develop DNA mutations. And of course, we don't necessarily know whether that's true if they are in fact getting DNA mutated, but it is interesting that they said it, that it came out, that it's now in the air, if you will. And so we do have a real serious problem here because this is not staying contained. Let me see if I can find this graphic that I found earlier, where it is traveling. This particular, here it is. And I did post this on Facebook in our discussion group. And DC Drano posted that Indiana and Kentucky water supplies are now being affected. And this is over 240 miles away, folks. So don't tell me they didn't know what they were doing. That was strategic. So now, and it's funny because I say Cincinnati a lot. I say like, I don't know. I don't know why I pick on Ohio, but I feel bad now because there's Cleveland. Look at this. You've got the Great Lakes right there. So if this is spreading, we've got serious problems. And you know what I was reminded of today, folks? I was reminded of the book of Revelation where it says the dragon sends out a flood. And the earth helps the woman by absorbing it. But it's interesting because one of the things that people don't realize about the traveling of water, and if you're a landowner, if you're on well, if you know anything about aquifers, then this isn't news to you. But for the city dwellers that are watching, for those that don't know how these things work, water continues to move even though it went underground. So, like, for example, if you have, a big lake, like this water source up here where the Great Lakes, well, that water causes a saturation underneath the ground, and then that water travels in like what you might consider to be like underground rivers. Okay, some of them actually are underground rivers, but because of the way that the water moves, so if I saw an experiment where they put a dye in the water to show how it moves in an aquifer, and it moves laterally, so the water takes the path of least resistance. And I think one of the things that we were able to see during one of our discussions is that if you agitate this water, then the chemicals come to the surface. Well, where are they? These chemicals are heavy, and so they're dropping to the bottom of the water. Well, that's bad because that means that they're going to travel with the undercurrent of that water. So while you might see water being very still on the top of a creek or a riverbed, or even a lake where it's relatively still, what you don't see is all the traveling of that water under that body of water. And this is what is being reflected here. So when you look at a spill like this, and especially as it happens and continues to happen in critical areas, this presents a problem. The other element of this that you have to take into consideration is the laws that we have allowed to be passed. And so here's another thought to be, just put into your thinking so you realize why these things are happening. Food for thought: the laws governing Agenda 2030 land development allow governments to seize polluted lands and move their residents into smart cities. Important to note, if the land plus water around you is completely poisoned, you don't get to opt out of the smart city model coming down the pike. Are you starting to understand now? So if they turn your area into a biohazard, this gives them legal pretext to operate with, like the power of eminent domain, using that sort of broad governmental power. It is sweeping. And so this is why these kinds of things we keep an eye on, because they have the potential for taking us down a road we don't really want to go. Okay, not to mention that they're attempting to destroy the next generation. So they're not just after physically moving people, because if they know that you'll just die off anyway, then they're not worried about it. Okay. Yeah, it's being eminent, but eminent domain without having to get paid. Yes, it's a poor man's eminent domain. A poor country's eminent domain. When they find, and that ran through the ranks. Ooh, a way to seize land without having to pay for it. Ooh, ooh, they jumped on that. So that was a fairly easy conversation for them to get everybody excited about. Um, and so this lawsuit is going forward. We're going to continue to keep an eye on those things and pay attention to them. Moving to back to the war front, we got to keep our eye on Eastern Europe because this is a very delicate situation. I'm hearing rumors that there's a lot of uh, uh, misinformation that's coming out, and we are being completely gaslighted about this. So anyway, one of decisive moves ahead of the president's of moments of his presidency, Biden heads to troubled Europe. I understand he's already there, meeting with Zelensky and attempting to shore up. Uh, you know, you got to kind of wonder about these guys still trying desperately to cover up like a laundering operation that we all know about. Like the whole world knows about this. This is no longer something they can continue to ignore. And folks, there's a reason why they're very panicked because again, remember, there's a lot of competition for who's going to rule the next period. And so this is what I've been saying since 2015, that the Jubilee forces the issue, and they're all jockeying for position as if they get a vote. They're all jockeying for a position as if they're going to rule, as if any of us are going to trust them ever again, right? I mean, it's amazing how much hubris they have, because how much betrayal have we already been through that we would, oh yeah, no, we're going to trust you to manage monetary policy for us. Okay. Europe is considering a digital currency as it strives to counter the US and China's tech dominance. One of the things that is starting to wear on the Europeans is the realization that they're in a multipolar world. You've got the West pulling West, you've got the East pulling East, and you've got Europe sitting there feeling a little in the middle. And so the European Central Bank is working on a digital currency as the region seeks to protect itself from tensions with China and the United States. MasterCard, Visa, PayPal, Alipay, and UnionPay make up the top global companies for payments, but none of them are European. European officials have been discussing the need for more autonomy and less reliant on other parts of the world for several years. Wait a second. Hold on. Weren't you the guys telling us that we need to do a global government? Weren't you the same guys talking about how that it should be dictated to you and that all the countries should do whatever the central authority says? So let me see if I got this right. When the central authority is Sino or Western or Afro or some, if it's not you guys, oh, well, we need autonomy. But when they were looking like they were going to run the world and they were going to run the global program, if you will, well, did you hear them making any tolerances for discussing more autonomy? No, they're canceling your autonomy, right? They want to cancel the autonomy. They want to cancel the sovereignty of these nations so that they can rule over them. Thankfully, some cooler heads prevailed. Recently, the WHO had put forth a policy attempt to circumnavigate the constitutions of all the independent sovereign nations, and thankfully that failed. So doesn't that's as far into the news review it gets. But the point is they're still trying. So it's very hypocritical for these Europeans, okay, to be all world government until they're not in charge of the world government. And then now they're talking about how they need to protect their autonomy, which is what every other country was already saying when they were objecting to some of these draconian measures and these wicked global fancifications and these machinations of these psychopaths. And they were saying, look, we're not willing to give up our autonomy, our sovereignty as a nation. And frankly, none of them should. Okay, so this is part of, yes, the healing of the nations. And then they give it names because the CIA taught them that, they can call people names and people will crawl away and cry. But, we need to grow up and realize that sticks and stones can hurt our bones, or sticks and stones can hurt your bones, but names can never hurt you. Remember that? So, so what they call you conspiracy theorist. Now you're conspiracy fact checker. Right? I remember when margarine first came out and the people that objected were called all kinds of names, were shunned, were ostracized, were a simple thing like margarine. It turns out the people that were saying no butter on the butter only people turned out to be right. They said there was a conspiracy to clog people's arteries and to hurt them and to cause them harm, physical harm. Guess what? 20, 30 years later, the data is in. The crazies who were butter only turned out to be right. You guys skipped that controversy. I remember. You got to have gray hair for that one. But I remember that controversy when it came out because, again, people who believe the program, who sort of go with the program, will always fight with the people who are awake going, what? What? You doing what? and this is where we are. So you got a lot of that happening right now. And I don't know if you know this, but this whole thing is orchestrated, and the more information is coming out that that these things were actually patented before the epidemic or pandemic will. So it's a total hoax. I mean, and here's another thing that I think is laughable, and this is why I love the Remnant, because it takes sober eyes. You can't be drunk and find stuff like this. Okay, he must have he must have gotten that tattoo removed. Here's the real Biden with a tattoo. I don't know what this is. I don't know what this is. Okay. And so this is just a game, folks. And I don't know if you know this or not, but there's an old saying in show business that says the show must go on. And so what do you think? What do you do if you are in show business and your lead actor gets sick? What happens? Do you cancel the show? Mm-mm. They put in the understudy. They put in the standby. They put in the guy that's been practicing, waiting in case he got. Yeah, they put in his doppelganger. They put in somebody else, and they keep on going. And they've gotten so good. Yeah, they put the understudy, and they've gotten so good at this that we no longer can tell when we're being completely bamboozled. We don't even know what the real White House looks like anymore. That's not the real White House, folks. Okay? And so you got fake White House. You end up with fake pictures, fake everything. And why is this? Because, again, it's just a show. And if we keep listening to and paying attention to the show, we're going to end up just as deceived as the wicked. And so we need to realize that. And again, sharp eyes pick these things up, not, sober eyes. And I mean, literally sober. Do you know how many people go to bed or each night have to drink? So I'm staggered by these numbers, but like somewhere upwards of 60 to 70% of the adult population in the West is under some type of manipulation, whether it be alcohol, drugs, even prescription drugs can alter your psychological capability. So, there's only a small group that can even catch this stuff, and they know that. So the fact that they're getting caught by that very small group is actually quite interesting. But everybody's waking up to the fact that this world has dramatically changed. Let's take a look here. You see high-level talks going on between Russia and China. This is why he's rushing over to Europe. And again, the average Joe on the street's not paying attention to this stuff, but this is a change of the entire geopolitical landscape. If you don't think this is going to affect everything from real estate values to credit cards to monetary policy, you're out of it. This kind of stuff changes whole countries for decades. Okay, so according to the Russian top diplomat, the two countries will continue to discuss the configuration of international relations based on a document signed in recent years. Moscow and Beijing will soon hold a series of high-level talks. The Russian Foreign Ministry survey, Lavrov told the State Duma, Russia's lower house of parliament, on Wednesday. And as for the People's Republic of China, we will soon hold a series of talks at the highest political level. So this is bad news for the West if these two get together, but I got news for you. See, I think there's more going on than meets the eye, like what my brother Gerald said. Realize. That's right. There's a lot of manipulation going on. Now, I don't personally believe that the Russians want to trade the hegemony of the United States for the hegemony of the Chinese. All right. Which is why I think Europe is going to finally come to its senses because, again, like I said, getting squeezed in this tripolar world. And we can go into the book of Revelation to see three frogs. There's a lot of threes we can discuss and take a look at, but there's something going on here. So we're watching as this sort of dividing thing going on. And interestingly enough, how does this tie back to the scripture? Well, if you remember, the sons of Noah, all three were given an inheritance. Now, the firstborn would have been given a double portion, but they divided literally the entirety of the earth. And we're told that in the Jubilee, we have to return to our folds and to our lands, which I believe goes all the way back to that origin. So this mixing and shifting is almost like an attempt to mess up Elohim's plan, right? Of sorting his harvest. Like, shaking them all up. It's not going to work. So isn't that interesting that there were three sons, though, and that would have divided the earth into three sections. And so here we are at the end coming into the sort of tripolar world that's very interesting and sort of all pulling in their own unique directions. And it looks to me like for all America's saber rattling that Russia is really taking lead of Europe in a very odd way. It's like even though they seem to be fighting, Russia's really fighting to preserve some things that I believe they believe sincerely, whether they're good or bad, I don't know, but and whether or not they actually have the moral high ground is a whole nother discussion. But I do believe they believe that. And especially when you deal with racial issues. So if you separated this based on just race, then you could understand why they would feel that way. If they feel as if they're preserving their race at the disadvantage of other races, right? So that's part of their thinking process. This is where I see Europe coming to its senses and figuring out that they have other enemies, and letting this little Zelensky thing take over the whole of Europe is not a wise move. So, thankfully, the more time goes by, the more opportunity for cooler heads to prevail comes in. And this is affecting economically the whole world. And if you don't think it is, once again, this is why I pull these things together. It is so that you don't get absorbed in the minutia of stories, because that's what they love to do. They give you a headline and they get you detailed. They get you into the minutia of a story. You ever watch a mystery? You happen to watch it and you were just clicking through channels, but you stayed there just long enough to hear some of the details of the murder mystery. And now you got to sit there. Why you got to sit there? Because you hate cliffhangers, man. You got to know how it ends now. Now you got to know if they caught, Felipe over there. You know what I mean? Now you got to know if they got the bad guy. So you sit there for another half an hour. They know this. And so this is why we have to review, not to get into the details of every story, but instead so that we can take a look at the greater picture and understand the general trends of what they're pulling off. So take a look at this so that you can understand how these geopolitical things that you don't think gonna hit the average guy, here's how it does. Okay, pay attention. Beleaguered Los Angeles port pins hopes on second half rebound. I pointed this out in the fall, how that they're seeing a dramatic decrease in the power of America to import. This speaks to the real buying power of the dollar. Internal to the United States, you're in a work camp. Of course, everybody's trading the dollar amongst themselves. That's not its real trading power. Its real trading power is reflected in its ability to be accepted overseas so that we can get goods and services from overseas. Containerized imports at the port of Los Angeles in January followed the same pattern as in neighboring Long Beach, up versus December, but down year on year and down versus pre-COVID levels. It looks like it will get worse in Los Angeles before it gets better. And so what does that portend for you? How does that impact you as the consumer? Well, if you're getting less goods in, supply and demand will kick in, which will mean that the price pressure of what has come over will be upward. If you add to that the changing geopolitical and economic scenario, in which case the US dollar is no longer the default international standard denomination used for purchase of, say, for example, oil or other natural resources, then this diminishes the dollar's ability overseas. It diminishes its attractiveness. People don't want it. And that means that you now have to have the ability to take it and trade it for what they would want. So let's say all of a sudden China decides, because we're at war, that it will no longer take US dollars for anything. Let's just say that they decided that. That would then force all US dollar holders to convert their currency into the denomination that China would accept. So if they said we will only take the renminbi, then you've got to move your dollars from the dollar to the renminbi. What's that going to do for the value of the renminbi? Well, it's going to go up because the demand will go up. What's that going to do to the value of the dollar? It's going to plummet because the value and the demand has plummeted. This then translates back home because you don't know this, but the vast majority of the goods you enjoy in stores all around your star-spangled awesome America are coming from overseas. So if that dollar loses its position internationally, that gravy train goes home. Now, sure, you can make all those things yourselves, right? You Americans or Western nations can decide to do that on your own. But here's the thing. How long does it take to replace that infrastructure? How long does it take to invest locally? And what will be the damage in the interim? Are you picking it up now? Okay. So this it does horrible damage. And I believe that the Chinese are getting retribution for Trump's tariffs that he placed on them, which was offsetting some of the trade imbalance. So when there's a trade imbalance, and this may be, review for some of you, but when there's a trade imbalance, more of your dollars are leaving than are coming back. So every year you pass a new budget, you print more money. Sounds like you have a lot of money, except if 60% of that goes into foreign countries and all they sent you back was a boatload of plastic, they're holding your cash. They can turn around with all that cash that they sold you plastic junk for, right? And come and buy real estate in your country. Come and buy real tangible assets. Come and buy companies. Come and buy people. Come and buy politicians. Come and buy whatever they want. They got boatloads of this cash that they traded with you for with plastics and junk and trinkets and nonsense that kept your economy going. This is why they got to keep printing it. It's not because it's not all gone. It's just it's sitting in foreign banks. It's sitting in places they can't go get it. This is why you're going to end up being, when they can't go borrow anymore, folks, when they can't go out there into the world and get a big Chinese program going or some kind of trade-off, well, what's their last resort? It's called a bail-in. I told you that years ago. I think it was 2013, if you were part of our discussions back then. I pointed it out that Cyprus was a test run of the reactions of the wealthy as well as the poor. It was across the board, and they just took people's money out of their accounts. called a bail-in. That is the action of last resort. That's when no one will lend that country any money. Cyprus couldn't borrow any money from anybody. They couldn't get anything from anyone. Nobody would help them. This is where America is heading. The last resort was to tap the very citizens' bank accounts that are right there. And, once you give them the power to do it, which the Canadians demonstrated during the truckers' strike, that they did have, in fact, that capability. They revealed that. And so everybody that got suckered into their system and is holding things inside their system get caught in that, musical chairs. Now, if they pulled it out and put it, say, in crypto or put it into physical assets, obviously it's much harder to confiscate. So that's why you're going to see continuous collapse. You're going to see the smart money is going to be exiting. Fiat is going to be exiting anything where they have the ability to confiscate, because it's sort of the last man standing. And there is definitely going to be a fear-based knee-jerk reaction activity that you're going to see going forward. So this is going to get dicier as we go. And again, if you still need more evidence to indicate that they are at desperation levels where they're doing very unusual things to survive, and anybody's ever been in survival mode knows a little bit about this, Biden administration is allowing states to spend Medicaid money on food and housing. So they're trying to survive. Biden administration has started to grant states requests to utilize Medicaid funding to pay for non-medical but health-related needs like groceries and housing support in order to decrease the need for medical intervention. So again, what are they doing? They're trying to find ways to keep kick the ball, kick the can down the road and keep this moving, because their entire infrastructure is falling apart. Besides people dying, which does happen quite a bit, you also have people getting arrested. You have criminal investigations that are shutting down a lot of these Ponzi schemes. Think FTX is a good example of that. That was a huge, huge blow to their ability to manipulate and manage and move money. So they try to make you scared of crypto. Meanwhile, they're using it to finance all. I don't know if y'all caught that. So FTX, okay? Recently, it's kind of disappeared from the news, but it's still a big deal. They're using that to fund things all over the world, right? They're using that as back channel for their machinations, while they tell their news people to tell all of you that it's dangerous and very not secure and all this other nonsense that they want to get you off of it while they use it. It's just more of the same, folks, more of the same. And so you're going to see more and more of these types of sort of desperate efforts to go around the situation. And again, this is while at the same time we're in peril. The arrest of Chinese immigrants illegally crossing the U.S. Mexico border jumped 1,230% just this last month. Okay, so Border Patrol agents stationed at the U.S. Mexico border saw an astounding increase in Chinese citizens arrested attempting to enter the country illegally in just January. And it says federal law enforcement agents apprehended 80 illegal immigrants who were citizens of China. Last month, agents captured 1,064. That's a regiment, man. Military Chinese immigrants at the southern border, 1,230% increase. What's going on here? Well, when you want to secure your investment, what have we got to show for our investment, right? They want to show something for their investment. They bought a lot of dollars, and now they're being told they can't buy stuff with their dollars. Now the double cross is coming, right? So guess what? The double cross of the double cross is coming. He gave it to us 2013. He gave me a vision, and part of that vision was that America would be neutralized, and we're seeing that neutralizing right now. I'm very calm about this because in that vision, he also told us that he would make a way of escape for the remnant, that he would make us impervious to their technology and impervious to their poisons, and that we would endure to the end. Okay. But again, all their lies are coming out because, well, it's that time, it's the time of light. They've been pushing a narrative. And thank you, by the way, Octavia, for sending up some of these stories. Again, Octavia is a tremendous help. I really appreciate it. Undercover DC police officer pushed protesters toward the Capitol, climbed over barricade, and now this is all coming out in the court filings as these actual videos are coming out. So lo and behold, there was a narrative being pushed for quite some time. And again, when they're using totalitarian power, whenever they're using this sort of brute force, it works for a little while. Anybody who's ever been abused knows the abuser gets away with it for a little while until a stronger than he comes. And the truth is coming in to expose the liar, the brute, the deceivers who are trying to manhandle the country, if you will, through their lying. And they're getting caught. This is excellent. This is awesome news. I don't want to go into this too much, but I think it's awesome news that we're seeing these kinds of lies unraveling. This is a very good indicator. This tells us that we've got awakening happening, saints. It says that we got people that are not trying to be deceived, that are pushing back against sort of it's like being hypnotized, and you're being hypnotized. And so all of a sudden you're realizing, whoa, they're trying to hypnotize me. And you're sort of fighting back your consciousness, right? That's what I see. It's like somebody trying to putting the country back to sleep. But the awakening is so much stronger than the sleep pill that they're giving everybody, or the stupidity spell that how many know they came up with a stupidity spell? They had to, because it's the only explanation we can come up with for some of the crazy we've seen. And so, but it's breaking as people go, hey, yeah, and sometimes it breaks with a meme. Let me just encourage some of you out there that are meme warriors and are article sharers and information sharers and double checkers. You can destroy a stronghold with a meme. And don't think it doesn't work, because sometimes it'll be a clever meme or a clever statement or a one-liner. Those are the best because they roll around in a person's head for the whole day. And yeah, the spirit made them deaf and dumb. There's something to that. They can't hear, right? And what comes out of their mouth is pretty dumb. And this is not to belittle. This is to indicate the reality of the situation. This is idiocracy here, folks. You point up at the sky and say, those are not clouds. And they look up and they say, but they look like clouds. Yeah, but they were made by chemicals. But they look like clouds. Yes, but they were made from chemicals. But they're pretty clouds. And you're just like, are you kidding me? And then you realize that they're under a spell, that spell is real, that the curse is real. Okay? That the kinds of things that can happen in your life in a moment because of the curse are real. And this is what makes me very proud of all of you, the remnant. I'm very grateful for those of you that endure. Enduring is not easy. It's easy to raise your hand and say, oh, yes, I believe. But when it's time to deal with the day-to-day reality, it's like saying you want to be married, but then don't want to do things with your wife or do wife and husband things. How many know there's a lot more to marriage than just a ceremony? There's a lot more than just taking going to services together every once in a while, or holding hands. No, man, there's a whole lot more to it. You can't just be in love with your spouse. You got to be in love with the house. Okay? You can't just be in love with your spouse. You need to be in love with your house. Right? That's how we know you have a covenant, because you love the whole idea of being together, not just that person. Because if your relationship is based on that person, by the way, it's going to fall apart, right? In the same way, you need to be committed to the whole of the kingdom. And this helps you deal with unforgiveness. This helps you deal with people that offend you. This helps you deal with difficult situations, because your greater commitment will help you through it. Amen. And so I see a lot of people getting offended as they realize the truth, as they come out of lies, as the news of the truth gets to them. We are preachers of the good news, but let's make sure we're telling them the right good news. Amen. The good news is not, the gospel is not, hey, guess what? You can go do whatever you want to do. That's fake news. That's not true news, because we see that he calls us to a conduct that is above reproach. And so my encouragement to all of you is to continue to seek first his kingdom and his righteousness, especially as you see the day approaching, as we continue week to week to watch the slow ramp up of confrontation between the kingdoms of this world and the kingdom of our Elohim. Know that the end of this matter is that you win. He is going to appoint you, the remnant, to positions of authority throughout the earth, that you will rule and reign with a rod of iron in his name. And so, of course, they're going to hate you. You're the incoming administration. You represent the new power structure. You represent their replacements. You're the ones that's going to call them to account. He says you're going to judge them. Okay, so this is going to be harsh on them. They're not looking forward to this, which is why they're doing everything they can to send out a flood against you, to cause you to capitulate, to get you to yield. All right, and remove you. And we already know that that effort will fail because you will endure to the end. That is your destiny. You are the remnant. That is what makes you the remnant. It is precisely because you are alive and remain that make you the remnant. If you aren't alive and you don't remain, guess what? You aren't. Right? You are not the remnant. And so, and where is the battle going to be? His name's sake. What did he say? He said, they will hate you for my name's sake, because the moment you say Yahusha, you are requesting Yahuwah, save me. This is a petition. This is what the Jews understood. This is why it enraged them. Every time they even heard his name, they got enraged. Okay? And they still do. They still do. So they still try to desecrate that. And unfortunately, they get compromisers who will cooperate with them. And this is what causes the confusion. There was no confusion in the first century. There was somebody walking around confused. That the confusion came in from the Pharisees, who wanted there to be confusion so as to rob people of salvation. Okay? Because they knew how critical this key component is. And it's the active ingredient in the salvation package or recipe. You cannot take this key active ingredient out and substitute it. Okay? You cannot substitute this ingredient. And why is it that men are condemned? According to John chapter 3, they are condemned because they did not believe on the name of the only begotten Son of Elohim. So that's pretty critical. And so my encouragement to you is to continue to be the courageous remnant that you are. You are powerful. You are amazing. And the revival that we already talked about weeks before this other stuff started happening, right? We were talking about how that he's making a massive revival going on behind the scenes that is happening one house at a time, one person at a time, one new Bible at a time, right? As people are coming back into the pure language, as he promised they would be. What's happening? Oh, no, we got revival too. We got the Me Too movement going on. Why? Because you guys are winning, Remnant. You are a part of a move of awakening that is unprecedented in modern history. And I am one proud and happy papa to watch it. All you young people that are coming in on fire, seeking first his kingdom and his righteousness, not just sitting up singing songs, but seeking his kingdom and his righteousness. I can't tell you how proud of you I am. I see it and I beam. I know he looks upon you. I know you're not many, but you're amazing. And I'm very, very delighted to watch you all grow and not settle for compromise. And we must remove compromise from our life. Compromise is the leaven of the Pharisees. It is the I want to be good with everybody program. And you have to be willing to let go of anyone and anything for the gospel of the kingdom. I don't care who they are. And that is important for you to demonstrate that you love your betrothed. So I want you to imagine when you first got engaged, right? I remember I think about Mindy. Mindy and I got engaged, walked into her, we're talking to her mom and her dad. And her mom was still a little freaked out. She was like, I don't know if I want to, I'm not sure I want to endorse this. I don't know. It's pretty quick. I don't know this guy. Who is this guy? And Mindy's like, look, I'm getting married with or without you. You can either come or you don't have to come, but I'm getting married, right? What was she doing? She's saying, look, my betrothal is not up to you. So you're either on board or you're not, but I'm getting married, right? That is the way that you need to approach, in my opinion, your walk with Messiah. You're going to walk with him. And if somebody has a problem with that, then they have a problem with that, but you're married. And guess what? The people that had a problem with her, they're not even her friends anymore. Like, she can't even find these people, man. And her mom is my friend. Her mom loves me. I love her mom. Her mom's awesome. So, but you don't blame them for being concerned. But how many know that if you're betrothed, you're with your spouse now because you got a house to build. Okay. You need a spouse when you're building a house. If you ain't building a house, what you need a spouse for? Okay. You need a mission. You need a purpose. If there's no mission and purpose, what are you getting the pieces for? Just to play? There's a whole lot of people playhouse. Okay. And they live in a playhouse. And that's what it is. It's a playhouse. Everybody's playing. No, you need to be in love with the house that you're building and be committed to that. And when you're committed to that, then you get through rough times together. Then you get through conflict together. Then you get through difficulty together. And what I'm seeing in this nation is a people that are no longer covenanted. We used to get up every day. Every single day. We used to get up and say, I pledge allegiance to the flag. And I know, you can argue, debate whether that's idolatrous and all that. And I'm not going to get into that right now. But I think there was something wholesome about it. Because every single day, how do I know this? How do I know the Pledge of Allegiance? Because we said it every day. And we had the 10 Commandments on the walls of our schools. We grew up with that. You didn't disrespect your teacher. You didn't even get it. I mean, there were like 3 fights my whole school career that I can remember. It just didn't happen, and now we see something different. We see the fruit of the television. We see the fruit of programming. We see the fruit of all of their machinations. So if anybody had any question as to whether or not whether they intended to or not, this is the reality. And so those are my generation or older, or in and around my generation, you remember that. And we grew up in a different place. And there was a cohesion. And if you were an immigrant, if you were somebody that was coming in to the United States, maybe you were from Africa, maybe we had immigrants. I lived in New York. It was a melting pot. It was the melting pot inside the melting pot. And we had people from all over the world that came in there. And they all learned the Pledge of Allegiance. And they all would stand up with the rest of the class. And they would all have to say it, just like the rest of us. And eventually, you lose that other thing, and you became this new thing. We've lost that. There's no more cohesion. They knew that. They knew there were certain very tenable, very tenuous things holding this nation together as a whole. And those bonds of peace have been broken. You're supposed to maintain the bond of peace. You're supposed to endeavor to preserve the bond of peace. That's what you're supposed to do. So this great experiment called the United States, each individual state being a sovereign state, having the United States of America manifest in the earth in the last days, was, I think, the epitome of what was always thought to be the great Luciferian plan. That, you don't need Elohim, you just need man. It's just the epitome of humanism. It is humanism 666. It is humans become God. They don't need Elohim. They can make their own rules, make their own Torah, make their own commandments, and everybody will do great. And so we did this experiment. It's called the United States. Everybody ran their own, and they did it. They passed their own Torah. Did it make the country better? No. What's the results of this experiment? What are the results when you remove Elohim? What are the results when you When you tell him he's no longer allowed in your school, when you tell him he's no longer allowed in your government, when you tell him he's no longer allowed as part of what you are. And yet in 1983, what many of you may not realize is that the Holy Bible was recognized by the Congress and signed by the president as instrumental to the founding of this nation. So this is a mixed picture. You got people fighting against something that has been ratified by your Congress and your president as being foundational to your nation. And so again, folks, what we're watching here is a pulling apart from the middle. So where there's envy and strife, there is confusion. And how many evil work? Every evil work, a habitation of birds, a habitation of every wicked and abominable bird. And this is what this has become when you ignore. This is why he's pulling his people out and putting them in communities, putting them in small groups, putting them in. Why? Because he's creating small areas of sanctification inside of a mess. He's creating little Goshens inside of this massive level of Egypt. And this is why it's critical that in this moment, you don't take this lightly and don't take it for granted that somebody else is going to do it. There's a handful of people that make sure this broadcast happens. If any one of those critical pieces say, somebody else will handle it, this doesn't happen. That's how important each person is. And every joint must supply. And so let me encourage you not to just sit and listen to the news with a just sort of sneak on by mentality, but take these as calls to action. Get involved with your local ministry. Get involved. If you're not involved with a local work, then get involved with a national one, or at some point connect in and then supply, help, participate. We need courageous people in this hour. We can present solutions, but it takes still courage to implement those solutions. We came up with a solution here that we're going to be talking more about in the next couple of weeks. We're recording video to do promotions for our New Kingdom Energy program or product. And it's very dramatic, especially when the storm comes, especially when the lights go out and you don't have any other choice and you don't have gasoline or you can't go run and get it. You're so remote, you can't go get it. Okay. And you guys are going to watch because I just saw the video today. We're going to be editing it and it's push a button and boom, the camp lights come on. And this is what he is bringing us to, a place where we are no longer the slaves of others, as he intended for us to walk as sovereigns upon the earth, men and women made in the image of our Elohim. But how many know that that doesn't happen without courage? So if everybody just sits on the sidelines and goes, oh, Peter will do it, it'll never happen. I'm telling you, it will not happen. It will only happen because people are courageous enough to say, well, you did what? Oh, let me go ahead and get in on this. Let me make sure this happens. Let me go, and we have opportunities for those that are interested in helping and want. And look, great return on investment opportunities too. So not like you're just being asked to just give and not even expecting any blessing. We want everyone blessed. Saints, this is the way it's supposed to be. We're supposed to share. We're so much wealthier than we realize. And if we would simply work together, everyone would be 10 times better off minimally than they are right now. And that's what makes me sad. It breaks my heart, actually. Half the day I spend lamenting the price tag of folly, of people going in different directions and wasting energy and resource that if they were to simply combine their efforts would 30-40% drop in costs and all kinds of other benefits would come. Doesn't matter. They keep going their own direction. We got to kill that. We've got to. How many more spills do we need to have? How many more attacks on your infrastructure do you need to go through? How many more of these psyops that we are that we're punching holes in? How many more of them have to happen before we go, you know what? I've seen enough. I've seen enough. Okay. I don't know about Ohio. I do know our water is pretty awesome. Okay. And I'm very grateful that he put us where he put us. I believe it's very strategic. I believe there's some other strategic places that he's going to be putting people. And this is why it's important that you don't just take this lightly. And those who dishonor him, that didn't think it was important to honor him, bringing the honor to him, here, Elohim, you blessed me, let me give you this. You got all these people getting their tax returns, are going to forget all about Elohim. Watch. All right. And then what's going to happen? Calamity is going to hit. And that's when they're going to, oh, right. Okay. The wise aren't that way. The wise see trouble afar off. And what do? Hide themselves. Okay. There's a few in Sardis who have not stained their garments. They will walk with me in white, for they are worthy, is what he said. And so my admonition to you all is to find your place of connection. In the first century, when they did this, you see the apostles doing this and people were bringing resources together. This wasn't so the apostle could go buy himself a fancy suit. You see me wearing the same clothes I had 8 years ago. Okay. Literally, right? It's not what it's for. It is for the preservation of the saints. It is for the work of the ministry, for the edifying of the body of Mashiach. And that is the intent and purpose of it. And so as we go forward, our heart, our desire, our purpose is to preserve your lives. He's not willing that any should perish, but that all would come to repentance. And so those of you that are able to, we know not everybody is in the same situation. We understand that. So those of you that are able to help, please help. And maybe that's not where you can make your contribution. Maybe you're limited. Maybe you're able to give instead. Hey, it's either time, energy, or resource, I guess is one of the, so give one of the three. Give either your time, your energy, or your resource. That's how you move the ball forward on anything, wherever you are. So that's what we all are facing. We're either facing that we have to add a lot of time because we don't have resource, or we got to add a lot of resource because we're short on time, or energy because we're short on both. So we've got to make up for that. We've got to take seriously the preservation of our brother and our sister. As I told you, this Kingdom Energy program, this product was a very serious one. This is a very big deal once it's rolled out into a company, and then all purchases have to go through the shekel. What's that going to do to the value of the shekel? We've got plans. We're gonna continue to look for ways to bless our brethren. And I told you guys several years ago that we were serious about this. It was going to take a while, but we're going to build it out, and we're going to continue to build it out. And so I want to encourage you all to get on board, whether you're getting on board with Remnant House or getting on board somewhere else. I don't really care. What I care about is that you answer well when the king arrives. When the king arrives, he's going to ask you some hard questions. And so I want to warn you in advance so that you don't get to throw it at me, because I can't help you in that moment. I've got to answer my own hard questions. Amen. So on that note, I think we're done for tonight. We've gone on a little bit, but I always enjoy hanging out with you guys. It is always such a blessing. And we do have to, yes, sister, that is a great point. Thank you. My brother Tony is a man of few words, and you should listen to every single one of them. Okay? He's a man of few words, so listen when he speaks. Tony's like my E.F. Hutton, man. You just got to listen when he tries to give you something, and he's right. People should ask, what can I do to help, instead of what is coming for my benefit. Isn't that what John F. Kennedy said? Ask not what your country can do for you, but ask what you can do for your country. If the secular people understand that, which is why they're kicking our butts, by the way, right? Because they invest together. They do things together. They don't leave it up to somebody else and go, oh, I hope it works out. No, they get in there. They roll their sleeves up. I love this team that we have. I love the team that I have. They just built I don't know what that's worth, several $100 million company if as they go forward. And just by working together, what's that worth? What's that worth? Not to mention solving the problem of the time. To be able to provide push button power anywhere. Did you say anywhere, Peter? Did you say I could take this thing anywhere? Yeah, anywhere. And, that's the kind of stuff that I believe he wants us to come up with. Now, one of the things that we're going to be doing to add to this, and this again, is just the kind of way we think. So since you're still here and you haven't left, I'll tell you about it. Water's a big issue. You think you guys are figuring this out? Water's a big issue. And you can grab the rainwater, but then you have to rely on it being clean as it went through thousands of feet of atmosphere, was clean in the atmosphere as it dropped down. So thousands of feet of contaminants have now come into that rainwater pool, and it's come in liquid form. So it's diluting everything as it comes down. So rainwater, if you ever heard of acid rain, that's kind of actually pretty dangerous if you don't filter that properly and take care of it. But it is a solution if you are completely out of water. I think a more dangerous solution would be groundwater, because as you can see, without clean groundwater, we got serious problems, right? And so if they contaminated the groundwater and they've contaminated the air above your head, you've got a problem now. All right. Thankfully, there are solutions, and he always makes a way of escape. And so one of the added things that we want to add in with some of this sort of preparatory, think about a company that's providing these kinds of things, and the energy product is one of them. Another thing that we're starting to talk about that we know we can add to the mix is water that you can extract right from the atmosphere. And this is very, very important because it's bypassing two main areas of contamination: the ground and the air above your head. If you were to remove water moisture right from the atmosphere, upwards to hundreds, even 1,000 liters a day. I mean, you can pull a lot of water out of the atmosphere, much more than you realize. And the Israelis actually debuted this technology in the desert of Israel, so pretty dry conditions, and they were able to pull water out of the atmosphere there. So you definitely can pull it wherever you are. And this gives you survival water. So these are the kinds of things that we're thinking about and we're getting in front of. We're mentally there trying to say, how can we serve our brethren? How can we get in front of some of these challenges? What can we do? But we can't get we can have the greatest ideas in the world if we don't get the funding, if we don't have people that are partnering, if we don't have people that stop investing in Babylon and come on over here and help the remnant, then that doesn't happen. And so this is my petition, my plea to all of you who have the resources to help. Stop standing on the sidelines, call me up, and let's go. We got things to do, and we got serious problems, and we need serious people to solve them. The time for the children is over. The time for the grown-ups has arrived. Thank you so much for joining us. May Elohim bless each and every one of you. Shalom.